Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to join our vendor spotlight today. Today, we are presenting Avertium. I'd like to introduce Kevin Lukens from Avertium. And Kevin, I'll let you introduce the rest of your team and kind of take it away from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Nice to see the people that I saw yesterday in Lancaster. It's great to see you on. Kevin Lukens, I'm the account executive here at Avertium, a Microsoft security and compliance organization. Joining me today as part of the presentation and kind of vendor spotlight is Fred Cobb. He's my senior solutions architect. Fred ran services for one of the organizations that makes up Avertium, so he has a wide depth of knowledge around our professional services and managed services capabilities. So he's going to walk through some of the technical aspects of the services that we deliver through Avertium today. With that said, Sarah, am I good to get started?
Yes, please go ahead.
Perfect. Can everybody see my slides?
Yeah, that's now in presentation mode. Looks good, Kevin.
Okay, perfect. For the folks on the call today, so Avertium's a managed security services company. What that means to us is, we don't have any unique IP or tools or fancy widgets from a security aspect. We're all services. So we meet the clients with the investments they've already made or where they're going, and with kind of two pillars at Avertium, with the advisory professional and consultancy-based services that we offer, and then the managed services. So our approach in the security market and where we kind of find ourselves is around this assess, design, protect methodology. You think of organizations in our space doing an annual assessment, whether it's compliance driven, PCI, high trust, HIPAA, following this CSF framework that they do on an annual basis, or whether it's from a penetration tied or assessment based testing side. So those assessments deliver outputs, good, bad, things to work towards. And that comes into the design approach, right? What's your budget? What's your acceptable level of risk? What are the compliance things that you have to do? What are the things that you should be doing? So designing your environment. And then it all ties back to protect, right? 24/7, 365 protection, making sure you have eyes on glass at all times so you can be able to monitor and respond in a timely manner. Fred, anything that you want to talk about on this slide?
Yeah, it's just important to note that the flywheel design here of assess, design, protect, it's really continuous. There's never any, outside of maybe a design phase for a specific project, there's never really anything that is considered always done in the world of cybersecurity and compliance. So protection is a moving target. Assessments should be happening on a routine basis. And designs would be, enhancements to the existing infrastructure. So that's important to note.
Yeah, the other thing that we're going to dive into in a little bit is on the services aspect. I mentioned those two pillars: advisory, consultant-based, C-based, professional services, and the managed services. You think those professional services really align to that assess design, and then the protect is really that managed services that we'll dive into here more specifically. So with that being said, I will kind of jump over to the professional services that we offer here at Avertium. So I know this can be a little bit of an eye chart, but this is the breadth of our portfolio kind of summed up. We're going to hit on a few things specifically because there is a lot that we can offer. Some of the ones that I want to call out around compliance, right? Governance and compliance, right? Avertium was born in the compliance space. We've been doing PCI since the council was formed. We have QSAs on staff. We also have high trust advisors. We do a ton of high trust, whether that's E1, I1, R2, or whether you're just doing HIPAA compliance and certification. We can do that as well from from a program. So Fred's going to talk about each one of those specifically. And then we're going to go into our acceleration and optimization. We're going to talk about three services that are very hot on our topic and our customers. And that's really revolved around the Microsoft security stack. So whether you're on Business Standard, Business Premium, or if you have E3, E5 licensing, we do a lot with what's afforded to you in that Microsoft security stack. And a lot of our customers today are looking for a partner that can help assist in one of these areas, if not all, in rolling out the Microsoft security stack, because the Microsoft portfolio can be confusing and there's a lot of things. So we have subject matter experts on staff to really walk through, and Fred's going to take you through some of those. But before we kind of jump in, Fred, I would love for you to kind of talk about some of the PCI and high trust work that we do here at Avertium.
Oh, absolutely. So in regards to the payment card industry data security standard, which is the PCI DSS, as Kevin mentioned, we have been performing this type of work. We are a QSA company. We have qualified security assessors that are certified through the council to perform annual reports on compliance for large retail merchants or those, regardless really of industry. If you're taking credit card transactions and you are in excess of a certain threshold, you are required to do the report on compliance. And we also, for those merchants that are level 2 or level 3, level 4 merchants, we help with PCI readiness. We help with self-assessed or self-attested, either one, questionnaires, otherwise known as SAQs, SAQs. So we can provide general consultation in addition to the formal assessment or audit work around payment card industry requirements. For high trust, those on the call, some of you may be familiar with the High Trust Alliance. Really, the impetus for the High Trust Alliance was when the HIPAA security rule first came into being, circa 2003 or so. And even to this day, the security rule around HIPAA is a little bit vague or a little bit non-prescriptive. So High Trust was formed to provide more meat around the securing of information originally around healthcare. The High Trust framework or the control set that makes up High Trust now has really grown beyond just healthcare specific to include ISO, to include PCI, to include NIST, to include other frameworks. We have several High Trust certified consultants on staff that perform High Trust assessments for organizations seeking to achieve either an E1, which is the baseline High Trust, an I1, which is sort of that middle tier, and then the most comprehensive, the R2 version of High Trust. Speaking on the HIPAA certification program and HIPAA in general, again, since the security rule has been in place, we have been performing, based on the requirements of the HHS privacy and security rule, HIPAA risk and gap work. So we typically tie that together. We don't do just a HIPAA risk assessment. We do a HIPAA risk, and then we do a gap analysis against the security rule. And we tie that into our certification program, where we have regular touch points with our healthcare customers, whether they are actual hospitals performing patient care clinics, or whether they are service providers, otherwise known as business associates, to covered entities, those providers. So we have, again, a large contingency of very knowledgeable staff around the HIPAA requirements, and that's actually our biggest vertical from a professional services perspective. Kevin, I can knock out a couple more of these, or if you want to jump back in.
Yeah, we can jump back in. And thanks, Fred. The reason I had Fred kind of talk a little bit about that, because a lot of the other services around this professional services really tie back to those compliance things, right? If you have to do penetration testing, web application testing as part of PCI, tabletop incidents or tabletop exercises, incident response planning, those things all funnel back to the overall compliance and framework that you're following, your organization's following. Next, more specifically, we're going to tie into the Microsoft security stack, as that's, a really big one for us that we help clients with. So we're going to talk specifically about Entra, Intune, and Purview from overview, optimization, configuration on what we can do at Avertium, and then some some later slides, we'll talk about the managed services we can perform around the Defender Suite as well as Microsoft Sentinel. So with that being said, Fred, I'll jump to the Entra slide here.
Sure. So Microsoft Entra or Entra, depending on your pronunciation there. Really, it's the Azure Active Directory with further enhancements. So as we know, those of us have been around in IT, Active Directory has existed since the year 2000 when Microsoft came off of Windows NT and with Windows 2000 brought Active Directory into existence. And then Entra really builds on that as the Azure cloud services and the consumers of cloud services has really grown dramatically throughout the years. So moving the authentication or the identity and access management piece into the cloud via Azure AD, now Entra. Many customers have adopted that, and there's a lot of governance or a lot of considerations around making sure that it is functional, but it's also secure and also compliant, because so many customers still are running in hybrid configurations where they may have traditional Active Directory on site, but they're using Entra, or maybe you've already made the jump to Entra and have done away with any traditional Active Directory. But we can come in as an organization with our A&O team, Kevin mentioned our acceleration and optimization team, and really do a soup to nuts assessment of the Entra configuration, making sure that not only from a compliance perspective, if you're dealing with a particular framework, but also with the emphasis on truly securing the environment, making sure that all the different functional areas are covered and best practices are being used with the implementation of Entra. And post any questions you may have as Kevin and I are going through the material here in chat. We're happy to answer anything that might come up. Another component of really the Microsoft, I guess, cloud ecosystem or offerings is the Intune implementation. And this can go in a variety of different ways. We work with a lot of customers where they're wanting to use Intune for MDM, mobile device management, or they're wanting to use Intune to really an extension of some of the capabilities for not only MDM, but maybe the desktops themselves or the laptops with Windows 10, Windows 11, security with configuration manager of those devices, with the securing or the containerization of applications. It might be in a BYOD or bring your own device situation where you're having to protect corporate assets on privately owned or employee-owned mobile devices. So a lot of work has been done by our teams already with helping customers to roll out secure and really optimized Intune implementations. So it's an area where it can be quite complex just because of all the pieces and parts that Microsoft has put into the Intune suite, such as endpoint management, such as device management, configuration management, all of those. So we take the mystery and the guesswork out of properly configuring your Intune environment.
The other thing I want to mention and call out for some of these services is we have various different kind of starting places of where we can help with all of them, right? We can do kind of the basic, lay the roadmap for you on how to do it, and then you guys can execute this and roll this out. Or Avertium can handle the full implementation for your team. So there's various service offerings within each of these that we can help, just kind of depending on your level of expertise and what you're needing. So. And we'll jump into Purview, as that seems to be a very big one.
Yeah, so Avertium, we're doing a lot of work with customers that have E5, either E5 security licensing or E5 compliance licensing, and they have access to the Microsoft Purview services. So if you're looking at implementation of data leak or data loss prevention, Purview is a great solution for DLP. Purview is a great solution for using the various compliance management or compliance framework packs that are available to you with Purview to basically align your environment to those specific standards with the help of Purview running in the background. Purview has a connector into Microsoft Sentinel, so you can ingest Purview activity into your SIM. But again, like Intune, there are a lot of different swivels or different tangents you can go down with Purview. And we sort of help customers with in some cases, the assessment phase where they've tried to implement it. Maybe it's a partial implementation or they're struggling. So we can come in and assess the current status. We can design an overall Purview solution based on the customer specific needs and objectives. And then we can do the actual implementation and basically hand the keys over to the customer with a very efficient and optimized implementation of Purview. Just to add to that last sentence, we encourage customers that have teams or individuals that want to learn as we're doing things. For all of these services, we're very consultative in that we like the shadow, we like the shoulder surfing, we like to provide training and knowledge transfer as we're doing any and all of these services.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Fred. With all our professional services and consultancy-based work, everything comes with a detailed report, executive summary, all the work that's been put into it. So it's all documented in there for you, for not just only the pen testing, but also the compliance, also this Microsoft Purview. So you guys have this roadmap documented and able to store for your team. Right. Didn't see any questions in the chat around the professional services. So jumping into managed security services, and as you can kind of see as this presentation has gone along, Avertium's really big on the Microsoft security stack. That's where we want to play as an MSSP. We want to be really good at securing the Defender for Suite, the Sentinel Suite, not say we do a whole bunch of different tools out there. We really focus on Microsoft specific. So with that being said, to be a partner with Microsoft and to showcase what we're doing, Avertium has gone through a large, from a certification base. Our employees have to do a ton of certifications to prove the knowledge of Microsoft, but also through the partnership within Microsoft as well. There's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through and go through to be one of their premier partners in the security, cloud security and threat protection side. For a solutions partner, we are a gold partner within Microsoft, which enables us, and for our customers, what that means to end customers is we have the ability to go tag Microsoft resources to help. In some cases, depending on different scenarios, we're able to use Microsoft funding to help with some of the implementation and some of the services that customers are looking to leverage within the Microsoft stack. So this is really important to us, being a Microsoft partner, because it affords not only us with our Microsoft partnership, but also it helps our customers as well within the Microsoft ecosystem. One common complaint we hear is, I can never get anybody on the phone at Microsoft, and I have to Google and search through all this amount of knowledge online to figure out what I have to do. And so, the partnership between Avertium and Microsoft, we're able to help those customers with that and making it a clear and concise, way to utilize the Microsoft security stack. So as you see, we're going to dive into Microsoft MXDR, which is our true offering and management of the Microsoft security stack, but then we can pare that down to specific products within there. So we're going to talk about each of that. Fred, I don't know if there's anything you kind of want to mention on the slide. And for those out there listening, Fred's pretty much got every Microsoft certification that you can get. So he's done a lot of testing on our side. So he's a wizard on the Microsoft stuff. But Fred, anything that I missed there?
No, good coverage. I mean, it's just important to note that, we don't just have one or two individuals within Avertium that is knowledgeable around Microsoft. We've got a large group of engineers and consultants on our A&O team. And then within the managed services space, we have 3 North American security operations centers where we have certified security operations center analysts on the Microsoft platform, as well as engineering level talent as well that supports those analysts. So it's important to note that the bench is deep when it comes to all aspects of Microsoft products, security products, I should say.
It's a good segue. So we'll talk about what that Microsoft security ecosystem looks like, and then on the next slide we'll kind of talk about how our service wrapper wraps around that to provide managed services for that. So Fred, will you talk a little bit about the Microsoft tech stack here?
Yep, sure will. So really at the top, we show Microsoft Sentinel, which is their SIM tool. And we'll spend just a few minutes before we conclude the call just perusing around the actual Microsoft Sentinel environment. We've got a demo environment we'll bring up and show you. But so think of Microsoft Sentinel as that choke point in a lot of cases where the various connectors are turned on in Sentinel to capture logging information from not only the Microsoft products presented here on this slide, but other products that make up your IT ecosystem. But just looking at this slide on the left side, we have Microsoft Defender for O365. So things like safe links, safe attachments, anti-phishing, anti-malware, custom rule sets, tenant protection around the Microsoft O365 tenant. We are not only ingesting that information, our analysts are looking at that information from an A&O perspective. We're tuning that particular offering within our customers' environments to make sure that they are adequately protected around email. And then we move to Defender for Endpoints, where the agent gets deployed to the workstation, to the laptop, to the server. It can be Linux, Macs, it can be Windows, of course. So looking for nefarious or suspicious activity that's happening on the endpoint and taking action. There are response actions automated. There are manual response actions that can be taken, such as machine isolation, such as PowerShelling, and going into the system through the agent looking for additional information about a particular alert. So the Defender for Endpoint, I'll digress just for a moment around that one. There is something known as the MITRE Ingenuity attack testing. It's a voluntary test that the MITRE company that developed the MITRE framework, they put out annually, and they invite all the vendors to participate, such as the Palos, the Microsofts, the VMware Carbon Blacks. Pick a vendor that's in that EDR space. And Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is in the top 3 or top upper echelon of those particular EDR tools. So it speaks volumes for the amount of R&D that Microsoft has put into the Defender for Endpoint tool over the last couple of years. Defender for Identities, looking for things that may be happening with the identity and access management portion of the user experience, looking for anomalies in account compromise. Defender for Identities will help to identify those types of issues that may be happening in the environment. Then we have, Enter ID sort of sitting there, as we talked about already. That's the Azure AD rebranded with additional features. And then we've already discussed Intune briefly. Over on the right side of the slide, there are.
Sorry.
That's all right. The cybersecurity stack continues. What Avertium typically focuses on this side is on Microsoft Purview, as mentioned. Also, with Defender for Cloud, there is the ability to put Defender for Endpoints on servers. Do you have to have a server for cloud license? Not necessarily, but still there's some reasons why you would want to do that. But there's additional features and components here, such as Defender for IoT, for serverless SQL, etc. Bottom line is the Microsoft cybersecurity stack is quite comprehensive.
Good. So jumping around how we wrap the Avertium services around the Microsoft security stack. So again, we call it our managed XDR for Microsoft. What that entails is, managed Sentinel, which is the SIM platform, and then that full Defender suite that Fred was just talking about: Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Identity, Defender for Office 365, and Defender for Cloud Apps. So Avertium has 3 North American-based security operations centers: Knoxville, Tennessee, Phoenix, Arizona, and Guadalajara, Mexico. They are all 3 shifts at each location, so there's full redundant coverage. Again, they're all Microsoft certified. As part of the service, you get onboarding, engineering, and support. So whether you're new to the Microsoft ecosystem and you're looking to first implement, these platforms, we can help with that. If you already have them implemented, we can go through, doing house cleaning, making sure everything's tuned appropriately. We're seeing all the data flow in there. There's nothing missed. So we're doing our due diligence on the Microsoft tech stack. And then kind of Fred will talk about in the next slide of how we connect to that and what that looks like. But you get your standard weekly, monthly, and quarterly reports through your named service delivery manager. Think of those as a technical account manager, your liaison between yourselves and the engineers and analysts, focusing on, right, is there new technology in your environment that we need to be covering? Was there trends in industry that we need to alert you on? We didn't see it in your environment, but we're seeing across our other customer base. So those are just a few of the tasks. Everything's wrapped around cyber threat intelligence teams. So we're not only looking at our customer base to see what's new and what's being done, but also we subscribe to about a number of different feeds, maybe seven, I think we're up to, threat intelligence feeds that we're constantly building new content, trying to stay on top of bad actors. So a full kind of managed service offering. Everything's tuned on onboarding, but as you guys know, security is always changing. So tuning efforts constantly happen, MDR response actions that we're making sure we're lockstep with our customers for remediation actions on, whether we're remediating everything or we're just remediating critical devices, everything's accounted for. Fred, anything that I might have missed on the services aspect?
I think you covered it. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. So we're going to walk through kind of what an alert looks like through this slide of what MXDR workflow kind of looks like from our side. And then I think we're right on time with the remaining 15 minutes before we jump to Q&A. Fred's going to pull up Sentinel and Defender to give a brief overview of what that looks like. So Fred, do you mind walking through the quick workflow here and how we interact from kind of day in the life with an analyst?
Sure. And this is quite a busy slide, but we'll break it down and kind of move left to right as we go through it here in the next minute or two. But what we're showing there in the lower left is something malicious in nature is happening on typically an endpoint system. So someone has clicked on something they shouldn't have. Phishing email may have gotten through, but something nefarious is happening on the victim machine. So that information through the Defender for Endpoint Agent or the O365 or Identity or Cloud Apps portions of the XDR agent is being passed up through to the Microsoft Sentinel SIEM, as well as being reported into the Defender Unified Console as well. So moving, items 2 and 3 there. What we have as far as the service delivery is we leverage a Microsoft product called Lighthouse. Some of you may have heard of that already, may be using it. It allows our security operations centers to have an easy connection into the tenant for the customers that we're doing managed services for. So once the Lighthouse connection is established, and it's a very easy setup during onboarding, we receive those same alerts that are coming into the Defender console in item 3 and or the Microsoft Sentinel console. We receive those into our orchestration layer. We call it our Fusion engine there at the bottom underneath item 4. So our analysts are seeing those alerts happening in real time and starting the triage motion in 4 or 5 over there on the right-hand side. So we're looking at the initial metadata about the alert. We are backlinking through the Lighthouse connection into the Microsoft Sentinel SIEM that is in the customer's tenant or their unified console for Defender. And we're gathering additional information. Again, this is happening in real time as alerts are coming in. From there, we're able to build information to put into a ticket to escalate over to the customer and also determine what response actions that we would take based on the runbook that's created during onboarding. Also, any of you on the call that has worked with this type of technology knows that there can be false positives. Part of our service is we go through on a routine basis working with customers to tune out noise out of the SIEM, out of the Defender console, so that we are really focused on those items that could be true positive. False positives do come up, and we address those We still account for those, we report on those, but we address those as part of our triage motion before they become something that is just noise on the customer's side. The run book, as mentioned in item 7, there is very important. We do workshops with our customers during onboarding to determine what response actions you're going to allow us to take, what machines you're going to allow us to take them on. We talk about and capture on-call information relating to your teams on who to contact if we're triaging an event at 3 a.m. on a Christmas morning and we need to engage an on-call team. All of that's documented in the run book, response actions, the tuning, customer notifications. Lastly, on this slide is there's something known as a Fusion portal sort of down at the bottom there, where each and every customer gets a web-based GUI that is unique to them. So you can go in at any time, look at the disposition of your open cases, cases that are being worked, cases that have been escalated, closed cases, some rudimentary or basic reporting around things like top 10 alarms, top 10 alerts. There's a mechanism in the Fusion portal to reach out and contact our security operations center directly outside of an email or a phone call. So you can use that Fusion portal for quite a lot. I know that was a lot on this busy slide, so please, if you have any questions, please post.
I don't see any, Fred, so I'm going to stop sharing so you can spin up Sentinel and walk through that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do a very quick look at the Sentinel platform. This typically we would do just, an hour's worth of demo on this, but we're, based on time, we're going to do just a quick look at some of the highlights. So, Kevin, can you see me okay?
I can, I got you.
All right, great. So, again, there may be folks on the call that are already leveraging this technology. You may be seeing it for the first time, but this is the Microsoft Sentinel SIEM console. And just a couple of really important things here. Again, we could spend quite a bit of time, but let's focus on just the content hub for starters. When you think about all the different things in your environment that you would want to have reporting into a SIEM, that the SIEM can do analytics on to determine if there's anything nefarious or suspicious or anything that's catastrophic even that may be happening in the environment. Out of the box, Microsoft, and this is our lab environment, around 363 different content hub connectors. What that means is if you're a Meraki shop, a Palo shop, if you're a Cisco shop, if you're using things like Box.com, Salesforce, Workday from a SaaS-based perspective, if you've got Linux systems, if you've got Windows systems, there are tons of different connectors available to you to simply onboard. And what we do as part of the service is we identify all those assets within the organization that needs to report into Microsoft Sentinel. And then our engineers during onboarding will go through and turn those on. We'll fine tune them so we're not getting extraneous noise out of those. That would just be extra consumption from a Microsoft Sentinel perspective. But again, quite an extensive list here of solutions. This is a vast improvement. Avertium as an organization, we've been supporting and still do support several different SIEM technologies, but we really love Microsoft because just the vast library that it exists, and also the, I won't say simplicity because that oversimplifies it. I'll say the efficiency in which it's a connector can be turned on, can be tuned, and can become live within a matter of just a little bit of setup time. We'll just from Content Hub, let's jump down into MITRE just for a moment. Again, I'm just going to hit some of the things that might be cool for purposes of this call. But we've mentioned the MITRE attack organization. We've mentioned the MITRE Ingenuity testing, the MITRE attack framework. What you see here is there's different numbers in these different boxes. So with MITRE, you've got different types of tactics and techniques that the bad guys use. And what any SIEM technology or any EDR, MDR solution how it needs to be configured or be made aware of those tactics and techniques so it can detect that type of behavior in the environment. So these numbers here, as an example out of the box, there are analytics rules. You can have up to 512 analytics rules turned on at any one time in Sentinel. So looking at the different types of techniques that may be employed by the bad guys and determining if those types of activities are happening in your environment. So brute force, as an example, we have 6 analytics rules turned on here in our lab. Account manipulation, we have 6 analytics rules. Detecting nefarious command or scripting techniques, we have 15 rules turned on. So, and this ties into all these different analytics rules down here. Let me click on that for a moment. Just right now in our lab environment at Avertium, we've got 214 active rules turned on to detect anomalies. But again, you can have over 500 turned on in your environment. So very comprehensive. I'll talk for just a minute about automation because this can be a differentiator between Microsoft Sentinel and some of the other technologies that are out there. Natively within Microsoft Sentinel SIM, there are automation rules, and there's something known as automation playbooks that are native. You don't have to pay extra for this. There's not additional licensing that you have to buy. But think about things that could be happening in the environment that you would want to perform some auto response action on related to a certain level of alert or certain type of alert. So there are playbook capabilities. Think of those as automation scripts. There are automation rules that tie into those playbooks. Let's say based on a certain action that is detected in a log, perform this activity, shun a port, suspend a user, isolate a process or delete a process. You know, some of this stuff can also be done in the Defender console, which we'll look at here momentarily. But just the capability of automation within Microsoft Sentinel is fantastic. So last thing we'll mention here for sake of time, the workbooks. When you hear workbooks in Sentinel context, those are reports. And there are there's a huge community or GitHub community or just community support for workbooks and also automation playbooks. But when you hear workbooks, think about reports. When you onboard a connector, typically they come with canned reports. In other words, if we were to turn on Cisco Meraki, there are workbooks that come with that connector that provide reporting metrics around what's happening from a SIEM perspective with your Cisco Merakis, et cetera, et cetera. But there are, it's very easy to create custom reporting or to import reports from the GitHub community that you can do minor tweaks on and make them your own. Let's do this right here just to kind of finish this up. So incidents is a huge portion of the SIEM, right? We have SIEM technology for log aggregation, but by and large, SIEM technology is used to determine something that is suspect or something bad happening in the environment. So the incident capabilities in Sentinel, let me just find one here that might be interesting. Here's a multi-stage. Let me click on that one. So this is an incident that we created using Snap Attack here in our lab environment. The notice it says multi-stage. We can look at the full details right here in the SIEM and just see the breadth of this particular type of attack. We get information related to timelines, living off the land binaries. We injected the bad guys or the payload injected a bad process. System executable was renamed. We get the timestamp. You can click on any one of these and get additional information related to the machines or the entities. Could be a machine, could be a user, etc. The actual tactics and techniques that map out to MITRE, all of that. So very detailed information right here in the SIEM. But if I go back to really the origin of where this came from, notice it says up here, investigate in Defender. If you are also a Defender for endpoint user, that telemetry information is coming into the SIEM that we're looking at here. We can jump right over into the Defender console. and get additional telemetry information about that. So this sort of partially lines up with the attack, but we can see even more information, suspicious sequence of exploration activities, the severity code of the incident. So let's say this was a true incident in your environment. Our analysts have the ability to go into the particular device that was on a Win 10 test box, if I recall. So we can find that box here in our asset list. And I'll show you, just as we close this section out, some of the things that can be done. So let's say we're triaging this, our services are in motion, we're seeing this activity occur. We saw it in the SIM, we jumped over into your Defender portal. Yeah, this is risk level is high, you've got a medium exposure level, we need to take some action. So here are the things that we can do on this device. We can isolate it. We can initiate an automated investigation to apply some ML and AI against the activity that we're seeing. We can run a heuristics-based antivirus scan. We can initiate a live response section, so we can create a shell and shell out into that system from an analyst perspective and look for additional things that might be happening with this particular alert. So again, this is very abbreviated, but just some of the capabilities that are available within just the Defender for Endpoint Agent. Not to mention some of the other Defenders for X components based on your licensing level. If you're an E3 plus security, or if you're an E5 license purchaser, you have the ability to do things with O365, where you can go into O365 and turn on threat policies. You can turn on different rules. And these are things that we work with our customer base on to determine what might be best alert policies. So the list goes on what we can do with email collaboration through Defender for O365, the endpoint piece, the identity piece, as well as the cloud apps piece. All this is available in the unified console. I'll stop there, Kevin. I could go on for days, but we don't have that much time.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Sarah, we wanted to make sure we left 15 minutes for any Q&A that popped up. I don't see anything in the chat, but if anybody wants us to dive into anything more specific, we're happy to do so.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll give it like maybe 30 seconds to a minute just to see if anybody throws anything in there. And then if not, we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Surprised there's not one question. Microsoft likes to be confusing. There's typically always one. So
we have someone typing. We do have someone typing. So I was gonna jump in and be like, well, no questions, but how is Sentinel licensed?
Great question. So Microsoft Sentinel, the SIM itself, is not tied into a particular enterprise or frontline or academic licensing model. To turn Sentinel on, you only need an Azure tenant and you need an Entra ID license. So those two items are the prerequisites. But again, no E3 required, no E5 required, no A5, F5, etc. It is.
Yeah. I was going to say the other thing to call out, the way Microsoft prices it today, and obviously with all things Microsoft, things can change pretty quickly, but they have a pay-as-you-go tier for everything up to 100 gigs per day. So part of the value of working with Avertium is we can help customers scope and take a best estimate of what their tier would look like, as we've been doing this for a number of years and have a large breadth of knowledge with it. So we'll scope it accordingly. And then depending on your license structure, whether you have, business premium, business standard, E3, E5, Microsoft gives, free log ingest for some of the various Microsoft tools. So there's a lot to unpack in that Sentinel licensing question, and we can certainly walk through it. But, as Fred alluded to, all you need is for those prerequisites is the Azure account to spin up the Sentinel Blade, and then we can help walk through where you think your tier would fall from a gigabytes per day aspect within Sentinel.
Yeah, just to add to that, to the scoping exercise, we'll look at the assets, everything that is recommended or something you're wanting to have reporting into the SIM, firewall traffic, syslog traffic, endpoint traffic, et cetera, and we'll provide calculations based on that. Basically, it's our scoping exercise. And again, as Kevin mentioned, Sentinel cost is through the consumption model. So as you're ingesting more log data, as you're correlating that information and applying analytics rules using the Sentinel service, there is a cost, obviously, but that's something that we really try to help customers understand so they can control and optimize that Azure spend around Sentinel.
Yeah, another question here, Fred. Are there various retention timeframes for logs?
Yes, there is. Out of the box, Microsoft Sentinel provides 90 days of hot storage. You can go multiple years of additional storage. So if you have a compliance driver where you're having to store logs for a year or multiple years, the hot storage is sort of baked into the Sentinel cost. That's at 90 days again. And then if you need to do additional months or additional years of storage, you can purchase that. And it's a lesser or less expensive tier of storage, but it's still searchable. You can still, for forensics purposes, access that secondary tier storage. Can you search the raw data? Yes, you can. There's a couple of ways to do that in the Sentinel console. You can do KQL queries against the information. You can do UEBA, behavior analytics searches, or you can just use the search function, and you can search hot logs as well as cold logs for events.
Another question that came in before that, are you able to filter the data before it's ingested to reduce costs?
Absolutely. So whenever you go in to onboard a connector, we'll just use something easy to talk through that, say the Defender for Endpoint connector or the XDR connector. Let's use that. So you can set it up to just bring in alerts only into Microsoft Sentinel. Alerts, in some cases, are considered free ingest. So if you're only interested in alerts, cloud apps, Defender for Endpoint, there's several Microsoft products where you can set up alerts only. And then if you need more full logging, when you onboard the connector, this is an exercise that we go through with our customers on a daily basis, is we will go in and look at the attributes, the table attributes that are coming over with the log information, and make the determination on what is meaningful and what is not, and sort of cull out some of the noisemakers within the logging attributes that are not really needed, and that can control costs as well. There's another thing you can do too, great question, by the way, is you can take analytics logs and you can convert those to basic. What that does, it doesn't perform complete analytics as the log data is coming in, but yet the logs are there and you can query against the data using KQL. There's a lot of opportunity for noisemakers such as firewall logs or WAF logs, where you can convert those to basic, and it saves a tremendous amount of money on Azure consumption. As far as transforms, there are some tools that can be used, such as Snowflake, to transform the logs before they come into Sentinel, to make again, this is a way to control consumption or get noise out of the logging coming in just raw. But there is some transforms that can be done with, again, I'm more familiar with Snowflake than any other tool for doing that. Great questions, by the way. Thank you.
Any other questions out there?
All right. Avertium team, Kevin and Fred, thanks so much for taking the time to hop on today, present your solution, and offer all the answers to these questions that were asked. looking forward to seeing you here in a couple weeks at our cybersecurity event. And again, as always, the partnership is appreciated.
Yeah, very thankful.
you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks everybody who
Yeah.
joined. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Goodbye.